Hi, welcome back to Keep It Dirty, a podcast where my guests share their life living functionally and sustainably, and the why behind their experiences navigating through our ever-changing environment. I am your host, Leslie Dowling, a corporate speaker, sharing how one can jumpstart your path to increase revenue and productivity through restorative health techniques. And today it's my pleasure to welcome my guest, Kristen Coffield. Kristen is an entrepreneur and founder of the Culinary Cure. Thank you for being on my show today. How are you?
I am so happy to be here, Leslie. And like you, I am an entrepreneur and I started my business, The Culinary Cure, actually about 14 years ago. And, it's interesting because the word culinary is in there, but I used to have a catering company in Washington, D.C. And when her cancer came back, I turned my culinary skills towards healing her, which, at least helping her through her cancer journey. And that is where the culinary cure evolved from, like using food as medicine, using my skills as a chef, and also, teaching other people recipes they can use that are better for them and better for the planet.
Yeah, I that's interesting. I think I heard or read somewhere. Oh, I was going to say maybe there we go. Now I don't hear the echo. The power of technology. So yeah, I remember. I think you shared that when we first met several years ago on Clubhouse, where we were speaking into our passions of just empowering others for health and wellness. And how did you juggle that? As I guess you have children, right? Were you in the midst of raising your children, or for the young uh, viewers that are listening that are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, how did you find juggling the business and raising a family?
Well, I love to say my story as a woman is a little bit of every woman's story. So, I married a great guy. I went to a nice school. I married a great guy. We had kids. We lived in a good neighborhood. They went to, neighborhood schools. And, if you're a busy human, it's never enough, right? Because you're always doing something. And whether you're sharing your children's stuff or starting a business, it's all the same. You just like to be busy all the time. So I had a catering company while my kids were little, and it was great. I was catering congressional fundraisers in Washington, and who doesn't like food, right? Food is like opens all kinds of doors for you in life. And it was interesting as a mother of three, that I would literally work all day when my kids were at school. My staff would come, they'd pick up all the food, they'd take it out, they'd come back after my kids were in bed and bring me back all my display stuff. So like a lot of women, you just make it work, right? And you're busy trying to be all things to all people, but also keep a little of your autonomy, a little of your income earning ability, so that you've got that freedom. So yeah, like most women, it's a juggling act.
Wow. And did you get support from your family? Were they your cheerleaders, or were they just trying to pull you back home? So how did you, just because I know I went from being independent financially, then getting married, and my husband never really skipped a beat. And that's something that really resonated with me when we've been married 27 years, through just family counseling and just changing our roles. That was really tough. And then putting that hat back on, or after all those years of me really integrating and finding what my passions are today, was really tough. So years ago, it seems like people that were trailblazers like you. It was quite different with the acceptance, and so maybe you could share with our viewers and listeners a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you a really funny story. I was picking up my youngest child at school, and I was in the carpool line listening to NPR. And I heard this thing about this new thing that was coming out called YouTube. And I remember listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, that would be so perfect for me because of what I do with food. And even 35 years ago, so I'm 65, and 35 years ago, when my oldest was born, I was buying organic baby food. I was giving my kids probiotics. I was buying organic food in our household before it was done. So I heard this thing about YouTube and I thought, wow, that would be such a cool thing for me to do. But at that point, we all didn't have computers in our hands with cameras. So I would have been required to get, real cameras and set up a studio in my house. And it wasn't possible. But in that moment, this light bulb went off. And to any of your listeners, I should have chased down my good idea then, right? So don't wait. Chase down your good ideas. So here I am at 65. I've had the Culinary Cure for about 14 years. I coach mostly women and men by default because they're married to the women who take my coaching. But I teach people how to use food as medicine. And of course, we've all heard that term, but easier said than done. How do you make a delicious lifestyle with food that everybody wants to eat where you don't feel like it's restrictive? You can't have that thing, or you're eating too much, like, or you have to count micros and macros, and like, it should just be simple. And as you know, because of your passion, if we all just ate the way our great grandparents ate, it would be so much better for us and so much better for the planet. So, our personal health is so closely tied to the health of the planet that our everyday food decisions not only help us live active lives longer and better, but they also support the health of the planet.
So well said, so beautifully said. And I think it's something that, as we are speaking today, this is something that I've been on this path for years. So when I first meet people, they say, how do you look so fit and youthful? Like they want to be like that too, but they don't realize this has been years of the my formative years of eating healthy, just being born into a situation where we used to cook together and eat whole foods. And my mother's side emigrated from Italy, so my grandmother always would walk with me, and we had a vegetable garden that she helped help us create. And I think that's where it really instilled that just reflecting on nature, respecting nature, and the cleaner you eat, right, the more in tune you tap into your senses, the more clarity you have mentally. And it's just like this natural progression to want to get the body to move and get outside, connect with Mother Earth. And, not that I want to sound woo woo, but when all these things start coming together, it is just such an empowering feeling like you have this vitality, this renewed and restored sense. And that's what really resonates with, I guess, all that you embody and what you do. So maybe you could take us back to, I guess you were saying, like your childhood, you ate healthy. Was this something that was in your foundation as a little girl?
Well, good food's always been part of our family. We love to eat. We're those people that, we go on vacation and we're sitting around having coffee and we're talking about where we're going to eat lunch, and at lunch we're talking about what we're going to eat for dinner, and all of our family celebrations are, around delicious food. But I don't want people listening to think that because it's healthy, it has to be complicated, or You have to follow, recipes. I mean, at the culinarycure.com, I have over 200 of my own recipes that I've created on there that are like 5 steps. I like to teach people how to do things really well, really easily. So my recipes are really just a guide, because the kind of cooking that you and I are talking about isn't really recipe cooking. It's intuitive. It's like, oh, I went to the farmer's market and I got these beautiful things in season. And now what can I do with them in a few simple steps? And to that point, which this is so important for anybody listening, pay attention to this. When you shop local, when you buy food that's in season, you are getting more nutrition, more nutrients for your consumer dollars. So, food that hasn't been packed in plastic and had to travel halfway around the world, you don't know how you can buy a clamshell of blueberries and they're going to look the same 3 weeks from now. So, you don't really know how old some of the food you're buying really is, right? So when you shop local, let's just put it out there. Nobody's getting rich bringing food to your local farmers market. They do it because they love it. And we should shop there and support it because it's better for us. The food will taste better. The food has more nutrients. You're getting a bigger variety of nutrients. So most people, what they've done is they've curated their diet. And every time I coach someone and I have them keep a food journal for me, I look through the food journal and I'm like, so do you eat this way most of the time? And they're like, yeah, those are, my typical foods. I have salmon, I have chicken, I have blueberries, I have tomatoes, I have asparagus, I have apples. And so what they've actually done is, instead of eating a big variety of foods in season, they eat the same foods over and over all year, and now they're limiting their nutrients. So they're not getting this variety of nutrients that you would get if you ate seasonally and locally.
I love how you break it down, and you do it in a way that won't scare people off. I think that's the problem because people think eating healthy means complications, means 20 million steps. So the way that you are packaging such, healthy steps is quite easy. And just like you said, 5 steps. I mean, so do you have a book, or do you just tell us a little bit more about, if we go on the Culinary Cure, what will people see on your website?
Oh, thank you for asking. I do have a book. It's called How Healthy People Eat: An Eater's Guide to Healthy Habits. And it's a little book. It's just really informative, and I like to say it's the perfect size to put on the back of your toilet so that people who need to get this wellness information have something to read while they're, doing a part of their wellness. So but when you come to the Culinary Cure, I like it to feel like, hey, you're almost stepping into my kitchen. You get to see my recipes and my blog posts, and you can connect with my videos. I'm a regular on some of the Washington D.C. TV morning shows where I coach viewers on these, different ways to achieve wellness that are really fun. But I would like people listening not to think that wellness has to be like, this thing you have to like achieve and go for, but it's your birthright. The way most people are eating is the diet. It's not the way. So if you think of your body as a car, and it's an engine, and you're supposed to put whatever the fuel your engine uses in. So if you have a gas car, you would never put diesel fuel in that engine. So that's what's happening. People have curated the foods they're eating. They by no fault of their own, because we are being marketed to 24/7. Everything's good for you. It's approved by this association or that association. But we've got to be label readers, and we've got to understand that the best fuel for our engine is the food our great great grandparents ate. So if it wasn't around then, you shouldn't be eating it now. Processing, artificial ingredients, growing chemicals, all of these things, they're bad for us and they're bad for the planet. And they are mostly designed to make somebody money, but that somebody isn't you. Because if you eat these ultra processed foods, and I just have to say it, just because chemicals are in food doesn't mean they are food. So your body wasn't designed to eat chemicals. So when you eat chemicals, it creates inflammation. And everybody listening may know that low level inflammation is the root of every lifestyle disease you never want to have. So when you eat the food that your body was designed to run on, that the fuel, you don't create that inflammation, and you support all the natural processes, and you look good and you feel great, and you don't, have a lot of stress, and your sleep is better, and your weight is healthy, and you have energy all of the time. And so it's really important to understand that everything you put in your mouth is fuel, and it's either helping you or hurting you.
Yeah. Wow. I could just sit back and just keep listening. And I just love your passion and what your heart is really just out there trying to um, attract people that really want to make the changes in their life. And it is just really interesting with all the different nuances and everything that you're sharing today on this podcast. Because, we only have one life to live, right? And we have to be or support people that want to empower themselves to be the hero. And I know that's very cliche, but I'm so passionate too. Your wheelhouse is you just love just empowering, getting them on a better, healthier program, the recipes. And I just keep thinking to myself, are people understanding that our hormone levels start to get unbalanced with like this? I went to a health food store, and what did they do? They put my drink into plastic. So I don't want to geek out, but the microplastics, there are microtoxins that are found in our bloodstream, unfortunately wreaks havoc on our system, creating toxic overload, estrogen imbalance too. And even the things we're putting on topically, which is our skin, is one of our largest organs. So people have to be really in tune and tap into what are they putting into the bathtubs for their children? What dyes and chemicals are in there? And, not to instill fear, but just being an advocate, like you were saying. So for people that are going into a supermarket, can you share the way they should navigate through the supermarket and what they should stay away from, Kristen?
And that is a great starting point, because you have to eat to live, but in order to live well, you need to make good food choices. And you've probably, everybody listening has heard that shopping the perimeter of the grocery store is where the freshest foods are, and that it's the aisles in the middle where most of the processed foods are. So, just a quick rule of thumb for anybody listening: think seasonal. So, what's in season right now? And if you live in a cold climate and there are tomatoes, you want to know where they're from. Were they grown in a hothouse, or did they come from another country, and were they sprayed, and did they have to travel? So, buying food in season. We're recording this and it's late fall. So, what's in season right now are root vegetables, dark leafy greens, winter squash, beans, things like that, apples, pears. Those are the things that are in season. So, we should be buying those because they're going to be more nutrient dense. Um, buying your protein, whatever your protein choice is. Protein's pretty important though, and a lot of people get confused about protein. Women in particular, we need to make sure we're getting enough protein as we age. Um, and it can be complicated to think, well, how am I going to get 75 to 100 grams of protein a day? And so you want to be looking at both plant and animal protein sources for that. But we've gotten a lot of bad information about things like, oh, fat makes you fat. Well, no, you need healthy fats. So you want to be thinking about buying things like healthy fats. Like, I know avocados aren't in season, but I can buy them all year round, and they are such a great source of healthy fat, and they are so good for my hormones and my brain that I do buy avocados, but really good olive oil. That's another thing that's high in polyphenols. Polyphenols are anti-aging. So buy less, buy better, have a plan for everything you buy. Don't go to the grocery store without a plan for what you're going to do with the food. Otherwise, you're going to end up throwing food out. And shockingly, Americans throw out like 40% of the food they buy. So that's not only that expensive. Now think about that. 40%, right? You're throwing out, this is food when you go out to eat. This is food you buy for at home. You're throwing out 40%. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of nutrients. And now that's going to end up in landfills. It's going to outgas. It's going to add to the heating up of the planet. If you're not nice about the way you throw your things out, it's maybe you're in plastic, getting moldy. So you can save so much money. And, I like people are always shocked, or as my daughters like to say, 25 from behind. But, I'm 65 and I have a lot of energy and I have great sleep and I have glowing skin. And, I think I look pretty good for my age. It's not an accident. It's very intentional. And I know you do too, Leslie. You look amazing. You are glowing. And this comes from just choosing simpler foods. Choose less foods with labels. And you can go to my Instagram at Kristen Coffield and I show you how to make cauliflower steaks. And it's a 2-minute reel that I did on Instagram, but it's literally the whole recipe in 2 minutes. And you don't even, I wrote the recipe below, but I wanted to show people this is so easy and it's so delicious and anyone can do it. And you don't have to be a good cook to make healthy, easy, simple food.
Wow. My gosh. Well, definitely I'm going to get your book because having three sons, my fourth is actually my husband. Yeah, putting that in the bathroom, that's an easy read. I love hearing that because sometimes you get in a rut, even as health conscious people, and we make the same variations, eating in season. But sometimes I know I get in a rut and I cook very simple. I don't use sauces and all this extra stuff because you never know. I have a gluten intolerance. And that's the other thing. There's a lot of people that have issues with gut health. And a lot of people are always on the go and they don't sit and eat and chew their food because, as you know, the saliva breaks down the food, which aids in digestion. So it's all, it's like a domino effect. But when you start getting involved with prepping and making food and getting your kids involved, it really just creates this really happy, like, hey, I want to get in the kitchen with mom instead of, oh, mom's cooking. She doesn't want me in the kitchen. And I find just bringing that to the next generation is so awesome. And my kids love cooking, my three sons, and they really enjoy just going to the market. It's like what would I call it? Like some sort of traditional way of like once a week, going to the farmer's market, getting to know the farmers, getting to know the people that take the time to pick these wonderful vegetables that for me, I try to pick organic. because of the chemicals that are sprayed on these vegetables. Maybe you can just share with people what they should be aware of when buying, say, grass-fed versus mass-produced meats. So I'd love to hear you speak into that.
Um, yeah, the whole, and I just did another reel about eggs. Eggs are such a great source of protein, but there are so many labels on eggs. So this is what a lot of people struggle with. It gets overwhelming to know what's the right choice. Should I be buying bottled water? What should I buy on my eggs? So let's make it really simple, because I want people who are listening to this to have some real takeaways. I want them to be encouraged that there are some really easy things they can start doing today that will positively impact their health. Um, so when you're buying eggs, you always want to look for USDA organic. That's one label that you want on, as many foods that you're buying as possible. And you want to look for pasture raised. Okay, so that's what you want to look for, because you want these chickens to have had, 100 square feet of space outside where they're eating the right thing. And the same thing with your meat. So spend a little more, and I just want to remind everybody, you're getting more nutrients when you buy better quality food. It tastes better, and you're getting more nutrition. So even if it costs a little more, you're getting more value for your food. And then meat is also a bit iffy for people. We order a lot of our meat online. We buy a lot of our meat at the farmers market, and because then we can learn more about who grew it. But a lot of people don't have that option. So if you can, some of the meat says pasture raised, like on the chickens, that's, you want to look for that. And a lot of people don't like the taste of grass fed, but I would encourage you to experiment and look for the more organic, the more humanely raised meats that are available at your grocery store, because the factory farmed meats, the animals were not treated well, and those stress hormones are actually in the meat. So I don't know about you, but I don't need to be eating anybody else's stress hormones. I got plenty of my own. But I think that you brought up a really important thing, Leslie, and let's just give everybody a quick primer on how to eat, because people have forgotten how to eat. We are supposed to be sitting down, not in front of a computer or behind the wheel of a car. So you're not supposed to be standing up in front of your refrigerator or eating at a counter. So eating should be a enjoyable and a mindful practice. So if nothing else, schedule in 15 minutes for meals. If you're a very busy person, you can find 15 minutes for your first meal of the day and your second meal of the day. You surely can do that. Chew your food. How many times? 32 times, people. Anybody out there want to lose weight? Well, start chewing your food. Slow down, chew your food. You could start with 23 times, because, that's maybe an easier goal, but start chewing your food. This is going to do several things. You're going to break down your food better because you'll have more digestive enzymes from your saliva. This is going to eliminate acid reflux for people who struggle with acid reflux. That's usually because their food isn't broken down enough, or they've used liquids to wash their food down, which is just another way of swallowing bigger pieces of food you haven't chewed enough. And now your gut's got to create more acid to break down that food you didn't chew. So slow down, chew your food 23 to 32 times a bite. You're also going to absorb more nutrients from that food. It's going to make it easier for the nutrients to be absorbed into the lining of your gut and your intestines. You are going to stop eating before you're stuffed, because you're going to sense when you're full. So simply chewing your food If you want to achieve a healthy weight, just start chewing your food. Don't have liquids with meals and eat more of your calories earlier in the day. So a lot of people are eating backwards. They're not having their calories when they need them. So you need your calories for your busy workday. And even if you're an intermittent faster, and I coach intermittent fasting, your first meal of the day is the most important meal. It needs fiber, fat, and protein. You need to slow down, you need to chew it, and you need to put that fuel in your engine so your engine has good, clean energy to run on, and that will help you manage stress, have more energy, a clear mind, and you will not end up calorie loading at dinner time when you're eating all these calories. Your body has no way of burning them off, and now your body is getting ready to shut down and go to sleep, but it's being forced to digest and it's ruining your sleep.
Amen to that. So I love it. I'm just like, yes, yes, that is so, so spot on. And for everybody that's listening today, I'd love for you to take us through a day in the life of Kristen and what kind of exercise regime you do to keep fit, to keep just mentally, physically, and spiritually in check. I think also Michael Pollan, well, if people get to have an opportunity, read the Blue Zones, because even that sense of community, we've been so detached, is it releases those endorphins, those chemicals, those feel good chemicals that actually stabilizes us and de-stresses us, and which will then not offset our hormones, especially women in midlife, hot flashes or heat flashes. My friends say, well, I just drank some wine, that's all, at night, and then I had all these hot flashes. And it's the sugars, and the cleaner you eat, the less you have those imbalances. So what is a day in the life of Kristen, and what tips can you give everybody as to what your daily regime is?
Well, as I said earlier, my story's a little bit of every woman's story. And when I was in my 50s, I had a lot of things happen to me. So my mom's cancer came back. My dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Our marriage was struggling with some things. My last kid went off to college. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and then my dog died. It was just like, what else can go wrong, right? And from the outside, my life probably looked pretty sweet to other people, because that's what we do as women. We just kind of like, we just keep all the balls in the air. We keep it going. We make it look good. We try to shield everybody. So in my 50s, I literally got to a place where I was at the end of my rope. Like, I'm literally at the end of my rope. There's no more rope. I have nowhere to go except down, and I've developed some pretty bad habits. So I'm having wine in the late afternoon, early evening. I'm having a lot of caffeine during the day. I'm running on some carbohydrates and maybe some yogurt that's got sugar in it. And I slid into some bad habits, and they were making everything that wasn't working for me worse. And I was so stressed out. I'd get into bed at night and I'd be like, it felt like someone had plugged me into an electric outlet. Now, a lot of that, so all that stress running through my thyroid gland, had it was a perfect storm, so to speak. So when I was at the end of that rope, I'm like, I can't control all these things, but I can control the input. I can control what goes in my mouth. I can control the thoughts in my head. I can control my habits around me, what I do to my body, what I put on my body, the people I spend time with. So in my 50s, I developed a whole new set of habits. So I'd always gone to the gym, and I'd always eaten healthy, and I fed my kids really healthy. But in my 50s, nobody's home, and I have a chance to kind of like do it my way. So I'm not sleeping. So I'm up at 5 a.m. and I'm like, well, I can go to the gym. So I start getting up early, drinking some water, going to the gym. And when you do that consistently, it changes everything because now you get those feel good hormones kicking in. I'm changing my body, I'm changing my brain. And guess what? I'm feeling a whole lot more capable of dealing with the shit that's happening in my life, right? So now I'm like, ooh, this is feeling good. And I'm starting to look good, right? And so now I'm like, well, how can I boost that water? So I start with the lemon water and I start adding the electrolytes and I start discovering the power of hydration, which I had never really paid attention to. And I start researching and I'm like, wow, hydration is the first pillar of wellness. You can only live for 3 days without water, people. You can go for like a month without food, you know. So I start becoming someone who intentionally hydrates, and it is powerful, powerful stuff. And and then I'm like, well, I'm starting to feel so good. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to eliminate everything that's making me feel bad. So out goes the wine. So now the only wine I buy is natural wine. And I have it on my website because people always ask about wine. But I'm like, listen, if you're going to drink wine, you really need to know about dirty grapes because grapes are some of the dirtiest produce out there. They're always at the top of the environmental working group's dirty dozen list. So don't be, just know your wine can contain added sugar and all kinds of growing chemicals and shit you don't want in your wine. You look like you have something to say there, girlfriend.
It's getting dark here on the East Coast, and I'm noticing my face is getting darker and darker. So I just put the light on. Yeah, go ahead. Please continue because this is awesome.
Yeah, so I'm changing my habits. So what I do, and I've stuck with that getting up early. So anybody listening, I know you think you can't do it, but if you want more time in your day, start getting up earlier. That is found time. And everything you do, now I get up at 4 a.m. and I'm not expecting everybody to do that. But I have a gym, Orange Theory has a 5 a.m. class. And I like to get my workouts done and I like to get started with my day. So I get up at 4. I have my warm lemon water that's boosted with electrolytes, and I could talk all day about hydration and electrolytes. But if anybody, wants to go to the Culinary Cure and message me, I'll send you my free 14-day hydration training. And I changed all the input. I like edited my friends. I got away from people who were just whiny and, whiny. Everything's, negative and gossipy. I focused on food that made me feel amazing and energized me. So I got rid of all the ultra processed foods, the, commercial dairy, and the gluten's a whole nother conversation about why everyone's gluten insensitive and how that's all about making money too. So, I focused on whole grains, organic grains, seasonal food, and the Culinary Cure emerged. And I cured me and I figured there were other women in their 40s and 50s and 60s who needed to reboot, and nobody wrote the playbook. So that's what the Culinary Cure started to be. So I get up, I have my lemon water. I do a few mindful minutes before the day takes over and my brain is filled with other things and people's emails. And as soon as you start looking at email or your phone, you're in somebody else's to-do list. So when I'm still pure and clear from my sleep, I do a little meditation, as hard as that is. I make myself do it because you get benefit even if you don't think you're getting benefit. I get my workout in. I have my coffee after my workout. There's a trick to coffee. If you're a caffeine drinker, you want to save it for 90 minutes after you wake up. First hydrate, coffee 90 minutes after you wake up. Hello, if you're listening, you do not need coffee to make your bed and get dressed. You need coffee for coffee's or tea. Caffeine is a nootropic, it stimulates your brain in a positive way. So you want to save that for when you need the brain power, not when you're doing mindless tasks. And that's why so many people end up with a second cup of whatever they're drinking because They had the first one at 7 a.m. and then by 9 they need another. So I have my coffee and then I go home and shower, and it's about 7 o'clock. And I've already done all those things, and I am ready to start my day. And I am so energized, and then I have my first meal of the day. I'm an intermittent faster, and I coach women to intermittent fast for longevity, for hormone balance, for overall health and wellness. So my first meal, it might depend on how many hours I'm intermittent fasting that day. And we wrap it up at around 5. The office is closed. I'm done. And I'm preparing a simple dinner for my husband and myself, and we're in bed by 8:30, and we have a nice cup of herbal tea while we're reading or watching one of our shows. So that's my day.
Wow. I think you just packed a punch of such great tips and tools and way that you could live optimally for quite a long time. My gosh. And I guess you really hit home when you were talking about stressors, losing parents, the catalyst to why you're doing what you're doing. And I just know losing my dad at 23 really set me on a tone of, your life could just go so quickly. And yet I embrace life, and just the small stuff I didn't sweat. But I'm kind of right behind you with having the 17-year-old still at home, a 22 and 24-year-old out of the house. So he'll be a senior next year. And me just trying to plant the seeds with this business and my love for podcasting, and losing my mother last year, and the adrenal fatigue, the stressors of just having that all on your plate. So I hear you, sister. I'm just coming out of that clearing, and I'm taking ownership for just stop being in this depressed, like, state of mind, and just breaking out of that mold and taking time to nurture myself. Because if I can't practice what I'm preaching, why am I doing what I'm doing? So I needed to just hear that today, and I thank you for that, because it really hits home. So thank you for sharing, Kristen, and just being yourself and transparent, because we all can relate to what you are sharing today. So I appreciate that. So before we go on with our life and our families and whatnot, please share with everybody again how we can reach out to you, or if you're having any special packages or promotions. Yeah, we'd like to hear.
Well, I would invite anybody listening to go to Instagram and message me on Instagram and say, "Hey, I heard you on Keep It Dirty, and this is what I liked." I would be curious to know what you heard that you liked. And I can also, if you do that, I'll send you a link to my free 14-day hydration training. There's always something free at theculinarycure.com. So I've always got something that I'm giving away of value that's a starting point for anybody who's ready to take the first step for taking ownership of their wellness. So visit me at theculinarycure.com. I run a 21-day wellness reset a couple of times a year. It's a really fun program, and it's an elimination diet too. So we get rid of those things that are gunking up your engine, so that I can take you back to your factory settings. Um, and I would just love to hear from you. And Leslie, I want to say thank you for what you're doing, because people need this information and they can't hear it too many times, you know. And if anybody listening is wondering, okay, well, what can I do today? You can chew more. That is absolutely free. And you can start tomorrow with a nice big glass of warm lemon water and put a pinch of Himalayan pink sea salt in there if you don't have any electrolytes, and see how that feels. Because once you start hydrating first thing in the morning, it changes a lot for people. So those are two things, takeaways people can use just right now.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kristen. I mean, what What a great conversation today. I was just so looking forward to having this time for you to be a guest on my show because you have such a wealth of information and and it's exciting. It's simple, the steps, the way you've broken it down so beautifully. And I'm looking forward to checking out some of those great recipes. How many recipes do you have again in your book?
So my book doesn't have any recipes. My recipes are all free right
Oh,
now,
cool.
and they are at theculinarycure.com. So you can find if you can find my cauliflower recipe, you can find lots of vegetable recipes, my life-changing sheet pan chicken shawarma, my life-changing chili powder chicken thighs. Um, I am a chef by training, so I don't want to spend any more time cooking than I have to, right? So my recipes are simple because good food should be simple and accessible and delicious. And that's what I want to teach people. Keep it simple, and you want to teach them, keep it dirty.
Yes, I love it. So, on that note, thank you to all my viewers and listeners that are here. Thank you, Kristen. We'll have to circle back because I'd love to talk about gut health, gluten intolerances. There's so many different chapters that we can explore and educate people. So, I really appreciate your time today. And also, I just wanted to have a quick shout out for Humboldt Healing Company's full spectrum hemp oils, which are whole plant extracts that contain all compounds found naturally occurring in the hemp plant. Humboldt Healing Hemp is always USDA certified organic, USA grown and produced, chemical and pesticide free. And that is at humboldthealing.com, HUMBLEDHEALING.com. Also, avocado cookie features heart healthy ingredients like avocado and flaxseed and uses all natural monk fruit sweetener, making it low in sugar and keto friendly. You can find avocado cookie at AVOCADOUGH cookie, COOKIE.com, and you will receive 10% off your order when you put the promo code Keep It Dirty 10. Thank you for everybody, all my viewers and listeners today. And just remember to keep it dirty and get out there and ground with Mother Earth. Take care.